So this was sent to me through Discord by Tarnschnitzel, which if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, if I end up uploading this, there'll be links to the Discord. You can post stuff over on Reaction Randy for me to react to. But this is, why do God of War's characters keep spoiling puzzles? This is too true. Not only just spoiling puzzles, but why do they backseat games so fucking hard? Like, it is no joke. There's a fight in that game where you have two characters literally barking orders at you, telling you how to handle every single one of the mechanics in the boss. Like, the boss is an attack that you should be parrying, and they go like, you have to parry the attack. And imagine if you happen to fail the parry, you get hit. They're like, see, I told you, you have to parry the attack. Then the attack comes again. They go, you have to parry the attack. And then eventually when you do parry it, and it's like, see, I told you that this was how to do it. And it's like, dude, I lost my shit during that particular fight. Then I guess I got used to it eventually, and my brain started filtering that shit out. But it is wild, the amount of backseating that some of these characters do. And when it came to puzzles, a lot of the times, they wouldn't even give me like 10 seconds to think about the puzzle before presenting a solution. Like, I'd get to the puzzle, and it's almost like they had been screaming the solution before we even got to, like, hey, have you tried maybe throwing your axe, bouncing it off that mirror onto that wall back there, then recalling it, and that will break the thing, and that will trigger the thing to fall down, and you can get the chest. And I was like, motherfucker, I just got here. I hadn't even seen a mirror yet. Are you okay? Like, did you, what the fuck? And then the worst part is that when they're supposed to be somewhat, a little bit more verbose maybe, they shut the fuck up. Like, a lot of times I'd be walking around, one of the companions go like, I see something. And I'd stop and I'm like, okay, what do you see? And I'd look around, I wouldn't see anything. And I was just like, what do you mean you see something? A little bit earlier in the fight, you couldn't shut the fuck up about wanting me to parry that move. Now you say you see something that I'm not seeing, and you're not telling me what it is? Fuck! It's so bad. It is very, very bad. It is actually one of the worst aspects of God of War. But let's see what this video says.
The new God of War is jam-packed with options, sliders, and toggles. But there's one feature I would love to see. A checkbox that means when I'm solving a puzzle, the other characters just shut up for a second.
Can you see anything from that block? What about freezing the geyser under the wheel? Maybe? Hey, looks like you stopped the water flow in that trough. There's a brazier to the left of the chest. Maybe you can light it? There should be a way to turn the wheel, no?
Yes, that's right. Some players have complained that Ragnarok's chatty NPCs will offer up nagging hints, patronizing reminders, and out-and-out solutions. But it's not just God of War. In games like Psychonauts 2 and The Medium, characters can't stop telling you how to play. And in Horizon Forbidden West, Aloy narrates every step of her own adventure like she's recording a dang audiobook.
This is so true, dude. I remember in Forbidden West, she does do this. She will not shut up, like, for 1 second. This is actually one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of, like, doing full playthroughs on a lot of these games. It's because, like, when you're doing a full playthrough, you want sometimes where the game is silent so that you can be doing commentary. Because, like, at the end of the day, if you're just, like, playing the game, no commentary, that's just not my style. I mean, I know that people do that, and that's fine. But, like, my style is to actually do commentary and commentate on what's happening or talk to people in chat or whatever. And the characters will not give me a moment's silence to express myself. This is why I started basically adopting the technique that you guys have seen during God of War, where if I need to get a word in, I just literally pause the fucking game. Because I can't be playing the game and talking at the same time because the game will continuously talk over me. So I was just like, well, every time I need to get a word in, I'll just pause and speak my mind.
Like there are massive clamps holding the shuttle in place. I bet there's a control console nearby.
So why does this happen? Why do characters keep spoiling the puzzles in these games? Let's dig into it.
Yes. I'm curious.
For one thing, remember my video on combining multiple genres? Ragnarok is primarily a combat-focused action game, and so the puzzles are just palate-cleansing moments of downtime between the fight scenes to help set the pace. So these hints help you move through the puzzles more quickly to get back to the real gameplay. Also, recent PlayStation games have been dedicated to accessibility, and these hints can be seen as a way of helping out players with, say, cognitive impairment. But according to the developers I talked to for this video, the biggest reason for their existence comes down to playtesting. At some point in a game's development, it will be handed to a bunch of random players to see how they get on. And one thing that developers are looking for is moments where people get stuck and frustrated. Now, this could happen for many reasons, but on a game like God of War, a common cause is that while a puzzle was simple to figure out when the world looked like a bunch of grey cubes, it's a lot harder to read now that all of the pretty visuals have been put in. Whatever the case, if a lot of people are getting stuck...
This is actually something that I notice a lot on a lot of the more recent video games, because like, if you remember back in the day, in the older games, you could usually identify objects that you could interact with simply because they're usually more detailed, and stuff that you're not supposed to interact with would have less development budget assigned to it, and therefore it would look cheaper, worse textures, that kind of stuff. So it's usually very easy to identify, okay, that thing I can interact with, that I can interact with, so on and so forth. Nowadays, these games have such amazing visuals that everything looks like, a meaningful object, which causes, at least it causes me personally, to be, I think you would call it a little bit of sensory overload. So to give you guys an idea, as I was on my way to get the platinum for God of War, because I went out of my way to go get that platinum, I noticed things because like I missed out on a lot of items, right? And so I went online and I just started looking for them because, like, look, I don't want to waste 10 hours of my time running through a map that I've already done everything there was to do in just to find, like, this one hidden item. And what I noticed is that a lot of the items were in actually really obvious places. The problem is the visual fidelity of those locations is so brutal that I can't identify the important items, because there are situations where, for instance, there would be like a couple of wood boards and then there would be God rays coming in through those wood boards, and it create like a high contrast situation where I would be seeing the God rays and all of this stuff in the scenario and like high contrast things and whatnot. And then next to where the lights are shining, there'd be like an item that's like it has like a golden hue glow to it, but it's like mixed in with all of the other light sources from the God rays. I never saw those items. I just never. There was one on this one was like the most egregious one, which is like on an oil platform, and there's like a golden a scroll that has a golden hue to it. And I kid you not, I spent like a good half an hour, because I was trying to do this without actually looking it up. I spent like a good half an hour just like running around every level on this oil platform. It's like running around up and down, checking every single wall, checking everything. And I was like, I can't find this item. I can't do it. So I go online, I look up, there's a YouTube video, has like the location of the item. And I see where the item is. And I was like, no fucking way. There's no fucking way. And I go there and the item is exactly where it said. And I kid you not, I went through that exact same spot like literally 10 times or more. And I did not see the item. Maybe that's something with me. Maybe I'm getting old. But I think that the pervasive improvement of visuals actually makes small things like that harder to notice.
By the exact same bit, then it's probably a good idea to step in and fix things. Often the best solution is to, well...
But in terms of frustration, I think there was a game, I think it might have been a Tomb Raider, I forget, but wasn't there a Tomb Raider where after you've been on a puzzle for a while, you could press a button and it would help you? Like, that's the way to do it. Like, this has already been solved. You don't have to solve it for us. It's like, hey, if you're stuck on a puzzle, press this button. Boom, done. Like, super easy solution, works every time, completely optional, and players who want to beat their heads against the puzzle until they figure it out, they can do so without any interference from the other characters. You just have a button there. You can even have the button show up like on the top right-hand side of the screen or something, and just be like, hey, if you don't know how to solve this puzzle, we'll give you a hint. Press triangle. You can even have multiple layers of hints when you do something like that, by just going like, oh, I'll press the button, and it's like, okay, hey, maybe look this way. And maybe like refocuses your camera to something. And then if you still can't figure it out, you can go ahead and it'll have another layer and it'll be like, hey, maybe try using this item. And then if you still can't figure it out, you press it again and it just tells you, use this item on this other item in this specific angle, and it'll solve the problem. And then that would be a much better way of doing it than just having the NPCs blurting out constant solutions.
Revise the design to perhaps tweak the layout, improve the visual clarity, or change the way the camera frames things. For example, in Metroid Prime, the devs found that testers would often get stuck in rooms that had morph ball tunnels simply because they didn't notice them. So Retro added spotlights over the entrances. You can also check out the commentary on the Portal games to hear about how levels went through dozens of iterations to help players figure out what to do. So that's often the best solution, but it can be very expensive, especially when the artists have already finished dolling up the level or the game is getting close to release. So sometimes the right option is to kick the can down to narrative and get the voice actors back in the booth to record some hints. This is exactly what Dishonored did. The devs found that players were refusing to go upstairs in the level Lady Boyle's Last Party because the guards told them it was off limits.
No guests past this point.
To help fix this, the devs added voice lines to the guests so they would drop hints about what's on the upper floors. Arcane says, "We try not to lead the player by the nose, but at some point we found that if we don't give a little information, people just get lost and don't know what to do." So it can be a good...
Isn't this like a symptom of the problem with this? I feel like there's a really big problem with this situation. And the problem is that at some point, you have to force the players to think. You have to. Because if you don't force players to think for themselves, essentially what you're doing is you're creating dumber players. You're dumbing down your player base. And the more you dumb that player base down, because they're used to having everything spoon-fed to them, the less effort they're willing to put in on a puzzle. So that means, like, say, for instance, a player has played like 3 games where they gave him an obvious answer. And then suddenly that player goes on to play Elden Ring. And then you have the bunch of dumb idiots who came out saying like, Elden Ring's a terrible fucking game, blah, 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 and it's bad, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, why don't you like it? It's just bad, it's terrible. And then you come to find out that potentially like a large majority of those players are just used to these games basically leading them by the nose and telling them every little morsel of information that they could ever possibly need without them ever having to think for themselves, not even for a single fucking second. So basically, yes, it can be frustrating when you're watching playtesting to see players fuck shit up and not being able to figure out puzzles. But fundamentally, you need to have players think for themselves, because the more you lead them by the nose, the more you're dumbing them down. And it's like, look, the government's already doing an excellent job of fucking up everyone's education. We don't need video games to ruin critical thinking for people as well. This is one of the big things that I've always said that video games are very good for whenever people would ask me about video games and young teenagers and shit like that, or even children. I'm like, yes, video games are good because they make them critically think about things. Turns out I'm becoming wrong as the years go by, because we no longer want our players to think. We want to spoon feed them everything they could ever need in order to solve every single puzzle that's placed in front of them. It's like, no, you shouldn't do that. Catnet, it's exactly why gamers these days are stupid, getting handheld by everything. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, dude. Watching a guide instead of learning, download shit to do tracking for them, not exploring. Yeah, critical thinking is dead. We want to grow NPCs IRL. Yeah. What you're saying is a choice, Ruri. Many just don't want that, and it's not about being used to it. It's the same as TV. It's like, listen, if you don't want it, that's fine, but you should just, like, there are certain games that you're just not supposed to play then, because if you can't critically think, there are games that do require you to use your fucking brain. It's like, I just think it's fundamentally bad for video games. Like, at least give us the option to think. At least give us the prompt, like I was talking about. Give people the prompt so that these little brainlets that can't figure out a simple puzzle can just spam the prompt and get through it. They'll just spam like, okay, I'm going to hit triangle 3 times. And it'll give me a solution to the puzzle and I'll go on. And that's at least better, because at least some of us get to think a little bit before we have the solution handed out to us.
Solution, and it can be done in a subtle and organic way. But that's not how I would describe the hints in God of War. Characters provide solutions before you've even had a chance to survey the layout. They repeat the same dialogue lines over and over, and they explain things in a way that's so patronizing it makes Fi seem standoffish.
Not quite right.
That was close. Try again.
So I think there's a bit more to it than just that. And the ultimate culprit is the sheer scale of this game. God of War is likely the year's most expensive release. It is a massive, blockbuster showcase for the PlayStation 5. It's a AAA game, as they're sometimes called. And with that status comes a lot of extra pressure. For example, the last God of War sold over 20 million copies, and if just 1% of those players got stuck on a puzzle and stopped playing the game, that's 200,000 lost users. Plus, with such a big...
More like 200,000 dumbasses, am I right?
player base, Ragnarok will surely be played by a diverse range of users, including casual gamers and complete novices. And when you're making a game with a budget bigger than some countries' GDPs, publishers don't like it if money is being spent on content that most players will never see. Games already struggle with...
And this is why Elden Ring is Game of the fucking Year! Boom! Because they don't give a fuck whether you see the content or not. They develop the content because it should be developed, and that is that. That is that. They're like, we want to make this level. And people, and some playtesters is going to be like, well, 70%, I would actually go this far. 70% of the people will never see the Millennia level. Wouldn't be surprised if 70% of the people that play Elden Ring never even see Millennia, never even get to her level. Because it's that well hidden. Right? And it's like, I can already see somebody telling this to me is actually going to be like, hey, listen, 70% of our player base is not even going to see this level. I'll tell you more. I would actually like to get stats on how many players have played through Dark Souls and never been to the Great Hollow. I would love to see stats on how many players played Dark Souls and never been to the Great Hollow, because I can assure you that it is a very scary large number. It is a large number that would actually scare a lot of people. Well, maybe not now, because now there's so many walkthroughs of the game, so people might see it. But like back in the day, when Dark Souls came out, I would argue maybe even 80% of people never saw the Dark Hollow, the Great Hollow. Straight up. I would argue that 70 to 80% of people never even saw that place in Dark Souls. And I can already imagine some guy from like playtesting, whatever, just telling that to Miyazaki or reporting back, and then that report getting to Miyazaki, and Miyazaki just looks at it. So 80% of players never see this zone, huh? Oh, well, that's a lot of people that, that's too fucking bad. That the zone stays how it is. It is what it is. It's that simple. Never seen it until I saw it on YouTube. Yeah. According to PSN trophies, almost 50% of people killed Millennia. Okay, so the thing about Millennia is that she gained a lot of notoriety because I guess nowadays it's kind of like harder because a lot of it is, everything's on the internet, right? But it's like if it wasn't on the internet, right? If it wasn't on the internet, a lot of people would never even got there. I think anyone can get to the Halig tree if they really wanted to, but it's a secret level and not every playthrough is about 100% completion. Yeah, 34.7% on PC. See? I was close. I said 70% wouldn't see it. 50% of those are from Let Me Solo Her. Yeah, exactly. See, that's why PC doesn't have it. Let Me Solo Her was doing Actually, I don't know if Let Me Solo Her was doing PC or PlayStation, to be honest, but yeah. But still, as you can see, there's a lot of people that didn't kill Millennia. But see, that is the beauty of it, right? You have to be willing to invest in things that not everybody is going to see, and that's fine. This is the same thing that I said back in Monster Hunter World Iceborne, where I specifically made a video and I stated that, like, hey, listen, I don't know if I'm going to be able to beat Fatalis. But even if I don't, I think it's amazing that it exists. And I think it's perfectly fine if I'm not able to beat it. It's just that simple. If I'm not able to beat it, I'm not able to beat it. But it is made and it is uncompromising, and I think that is the way to do it.
retention. IO Interactive once said that only 20% of players would reach the last level in Hitman Absolution. And now we can see trophy data on PlayStation and Steam. It's clear that most people simply don't finish games. So this creates an instinct of both developers and publishers to aggressively...
But it's like, listen, let me tell you something. You can't... The reason people don't play games... The reason people don't finish games is because we have a culture right now, and it is a terrible culture. It is a culture of information overload. It is a culture of people being pulled in a million different directions. It is a culture of extremely low attention spans. And when you're asking somebody for, like, in the case of God of War, let's say anywhere from 20 to 30 hours for a normal playthrough, like mine took 70 because I was playing on max difficulty and I'm not that great of a player to begin with. So mine took like 70 hours. It was like 77 hours, something like that. Although probably like 5 of those hours are probably idle. As a content creator, that happens a lot. But so let's say about 70 hours for me. But I think for the average person, it'll be 20 to 30 hours if they're playing on a reasonable difficulty that's appropriate for them. And when you're asking with the current attention span that people have, and you're asking for 20 to 30 hours of their time, that is actually a big ask. And it doesn't matter how many fucking tips you give them. It means nothing, okay? It does not matter how many tips you give these people. It's not going to make a difference. You're basically just pissing off the few people that are interested in actually exploring these puzzles in favor of trying to cater to all of these people with their attention spans that are out the ass because they've been watching too much fucking TikTok. You're sacrificing the players that are actually interested in playing the game in favor of people that are simply not interested in finishing the game. At the end of the day, I know that, like, for instance, I have the same problem. Like, I make a video and it's like a 30-minute video or it's a 1-hour video or whatever. And I look and I see that the average that people will watch will be like a third of that, or something like that. But I'm like, hey, whatever. Some people watch the entire duration of the video. Some people will only watch half of the video. Some people will actually watch the whole video. And that is the thing. I make the videos for all of those people. Hey, if you only watch a little bit of it, hey, thanks for watching anyways. If you want to watch half of it, that's fine. Hopefully you get the information that you were looking for, the entertainment that you were looking for, and that's good. And if you watch all of it, then you're the most special snowflake. Thank you. But fundamentally, it's like I'm not going out of my way to make my video in a way that's going to appeal to the people that have the low attention span. Because why would I? Because this is how you get these videos that basically like show you the most important part of the video at the beginning of the video and then show you the actual video, thus spoiling the premise of the whole thing from the get-go. And I'm just like, well, I'm basically ruining it for the people that actually want to watch the video. I should not be catering to the people that could potentially watch the video or maybe don't want to watch the video. It's the same thing with video games. You should be catering to the people that actually want to play your video game, not the people that are going to, play 5 minutes and then leave just so that they say they've played it. Oh yeah, I played God of War Ragnarok for about an hour. Yeah, it was fun. And then it can be a part of the social conversation. You should not cater to these people. This is always going to be the case. There's always going to be people that don't want to play the entirety of your game. It's just that simple. Only 14.4 people got in the Ash Lake and got the Dragon Covenant in PC Dark Souls. See, I'm correct. Culture of Steam sales in a game library of 2,000 games. Yeah, it's like, it is what it is. Realize still haven't completed the achievement to cook my first well-done steak in Monster Hunter World. Oh, you fucking savage. Probably an anomaly on Steam. I only have games that I actually want to play and probably have finished 90% of them. Yeah, you are an anomaly. I have a lot of games on Steam that I haven't played. Hell, I have a lot of games on consoles that I haven't played. But the thing is, when I do play a game, usually I try to make a plan where I play the entirety of the game, unless I lose interest halfway. But my plan is usually to play the entirety of games. Like, in the back of my mind, I still have Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that I still haven't finished. It's just Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But I did play over 100 hours of the damn thing. It's just, I was very disappointed by a lot of things in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and that tainted my experience. It's not because I don't have the patience or the attention span to play it. It's quite simply I was disappointed by so many things that at some point my brain went into short circuit and I was like, I don't want to be playing this right now. And I started playing something else.
Watch these playtests and round off every rough edge, to jump in with a blunt force fix whenever a player gets frustrated, and to remove anything that might leave a player confused. Which might sound valiant, but in my mind at least, the ultimate outcome of this approach has been a whole generation of games that seem terrified of letting the player think for themselves. And
if you actually think back, this is the same environment that generated Demon Souls. Like, no joke. This is the same environment that generated Demon Souls. So in a way, this could actually be a good thing. Like, back when Demon Souls came out, it was such a refreshing take on video games, because most of the games that I was playing at the time, I remember that the bar of entry for most games back then was basically like, hey, can you press the X button? Congratulations, you win. Like, that was it. That was about as hard as things would get. You press the X button, you can finish this game. It's not even a problem. And then along came Demon Souls, where it's like, I don't give a fuck. Demon Souls is like, bro, you're going to learn how to parry or you're going to fucking die. It's just that simple. We have no problem with killing you repeatedly, with holding back your progress, and it was very refreshing. And I kind of feel like we're once again veering towards that style of game where it's like, oh, can you press the X button? Okay, you win. There you go. Boom.
Not just that these hints mean you don't have to solve the puzzles. We also see it in the way games are packed with waypoints, little dotted lines, exhaustive quest logs, and messy map markers, all there to stop players getting lost, but it also means you never have to think about where to go next. And how games have these tightly constructed set pieces with a single, ultra-specific way to finish them, which means you never have to think critically or get creative with how you overcome the obstacle at hand. And so the stuff that I think makes video games so engaging, like exploration, problem solving, plan formation, risk versus reward, and suddenly realizing the solution to a puzzle that's had you stumped, all of that gets slowly worn away. So yes, as I said at the beginning, an option would be nice. And we've seen plenty of games that have found ways to let people play for themselves. In the new A Plague's Tale, there's a setting to turn down character hints. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, you can independently tweak the difficulty of combat, exploration, and puzzles. In Jedi Fallen Order, you have to press a button to opt in to puzzle hints. In
this is how you solve it right here. Just like I said, this is how you fucking solve it. Do you want a hint? You want a hint? You want to know how to solve the puzzle? No? Okay. Let us know if you want a hint. This is how you solve it. Like, look, the solution is right here. Here's the solution to all of these problems. If you want a hint, you ask for it. Don't fucking have characters spoiling puzzles, because that's stupid.
Hints. In Assassin's Creed, an exploration mode eases up on the waypoints. And in Mario Odyssey, while the main game is reasonably straightforward, there's plenty to explore in side content and the end game that will suit more seasoned players. But I don't think sliders can really fix this more fundamental design philosophy that's driving the current crop of AAA Western-made games. You can't really use options to turn Assassin's Creed into Elden Ring. And as budgets balloon, publishers become more and more averse to taking risk, which leads to games that are so afraid of losing any players, they practically play themselves.
Yep.
So maybe I just need to rethink how I see these games. AAA games are like Marvel movies. Great fun if you just want to turn your brain off for a while and soak in the spectacle. And on those merits, God of War is an absolute gem. But if you want to actually engage your brain, you're probably going to have to look elsewhere, most likely to indie games like Return of the Obra Dinn, Outer Wilds.
You can engage your brain in God of War, but you're just engaging it in different aspects. Like, you're just not engaging it during puzzle solving, but you'll still have to engage it in terms of, depending on the difficulty that you play, I guess, in terms of how to solve combat encounters. You have to figure out a decent build. You have to figure out, a couple of different things. So you still engage your brain. But again, if you just bump it down to story mode, then you don't have to engage your brain on either front. You just you steamroll the game. So there's that. But again, it's an option.
Immortality and Tunic. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. This was also my first stab at a sort of GMTK mini, a short, scrappy video I can use to comment on the current game design discourse. Good? Bad? Let me know.
It is very good. This was a very good video. Oops. Sorry, I kind of jumped over it.
The new God of...
Team, make sure to come over here and give the video a like, and also put it playing in the background or something, and get the pain, just like to give it some watch time as well. Yeah, really good.